The background is Philip Glass solo piano, a recording from 1989, digital recording, heyday of compact discs. I love Philip Glass. Philip Glass was the music from Candyman, the soundtracks to Candyman, that was in the last video. This is part two. I wasn't gonna do a part two of Depressing albums, but this video I did yesterday, the first volume, which was gonna be the only volume of 10 Depressing album artists, has become one of my fastest, it's up with a bullet. Probably shouldn't use that in terms of the depression of albums, but it's rising. I had something almost like, God, 650 viewers already, and it hasn't even been 24 hours yet from that one video. But this is viewers' suggestions for the most part. I had a lot of great suggestions in the comment section, so read down if you like. I'm not gonna list all who did what because several people overlapped. And obviously I'm only gonna show the records I have. I'm not gonna go into compact discs. There are a few other things, but a lot of great suggestions, a lot of alternate suggestions to what I showed, but it was really a really wonderful response. And I want to thank the first commenter yesterday, right after it launched or posted, was Jeff Kempin. And there's a simple description that he said about it, not simple in terms of, well, I should have thought of it. It was a word that just eluded me when I was thinking about that. And it was just how these records are cathartic. Cathartic, that's exactly what we feel sometimes about playing this music. It's not that it's depressing music. Maybe that's a clickbait headline. That's why everyone's chiming in and watching that video. But this video now are more, it's sort of part two, but for the most part, these are viewer suggestions. So without further ado, you all seem to be a little depressed, a little into low-key, monotone music that might be ethereal, that might bring us down. And again, what a lot of people said, this music does lift our spirits when things are happening. So moody music and songs about loss, a loss of love, loss of a life, can be pretty wonderful at times, at least for me, and it seems to be a lot of you out there too. So here we go. I did, in my note, I don't know if anyone saw that, the band that I think I should have done on my original list was the Smiths, and especially Morrissey with the Smiths. Now, someone mentioned, well, really Johnny Marr's guitar playing is really up there and lively and wonderful and upbeat, which is pretty true for the most part. But Morrissey's songs add a whole other level to it, and I think added to the magic of that group, in my opinion. So instead of picking one album, I'm picking a 12-inch single. I'm a collector of Smiths 12-inch singles. Look, one of my earliest videos, I showcased my Smiths collection. But to me, the one that typifies, at least in title, is Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. Rough Trade Records, and this is the 12-inch single. The B-side, Girl Afraid and Suffer Little Children. If that ain't depressing as hell, a title at least, but in spirit, I don't know what is, but love Morrissey, love the Smiths. I still love Morrissey records despite his wankiness. He's a wanker, but we love him, or at least I love him. Okay, Neil Young was a top request, and obviously I chose one Neil Young for whatever reason. It could have been Tonight's the Night, it could have been another one, but On the Beach definitely could have been another Neil Young. I almost didn't pull a second Neil Young, but for the Turnstiles, Vampire Blues, On the Beach, Ambulance Blues, See the Sky About to Rain, Revolution Blues. I mean, just, you parked your car in the wrong space, buddy. Remember Cadillac Ranch? Is that still around? All the Cadillacs are buried out in the desert. Anyway, Neil Young, Maslowian Flip, Neil Young. Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures. Obviously the title in a way, but the music, the sound of the music. Obviously this became even more depressing in a certain way just because of the circumstance it came out when Ian Curtis died just before they were about to embark on their first tour of America. So I'm including this. This is my original copy that I got back in, what year did it come out? 1980? 79, 80? You guys know that. I'm not going to pull it out here, but great record. And if you haven't seen Control, the movie based on his life, beautiful. Anton Corbijn, is that Anton Corbijn? Directed it, I think his first movie, photographer. Great film, black and white film. But here's another one that should be on this list. I almost picked this last time, but a couple people suggested Zevon Stevens, obviously Carrie and Lowell. Now, this is a gorgeous record. This was probably the first or one of the top 2 or 3 of my favorite records in 2015. Beautifully written, autobiographical after his mother died, and it's about his mother and his stepfather and just his life at that time and growing up with them. But this is an amazingly beautiful record. It seems sort of the way of musically, it's uplifting, but it can be pretty depressing. But again, in that cathartic way, I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful record. One of my top records of this past decade, or last decade now, since we're on to the new one. Now, I'm not sure why I put this in. This was a request, and in a million years, I would never have thought of this record. This is a friggin' great record. Way Down in the Jungle Room, Elvis Presley. This came out, what, 2 years ago? 2016. Time goes by when you're having a blast, right? 4 years ago. This was a comp. This was rehearsals. The Jungle Room was the downstairs, sort of the Elvis Presley's man cave. And the musicians on this are just, I mean, it's the people he played with, you know, during that time. This was recorded in 1976, I think all of it around 1976. And James Burton, one of my favorite Telecaster guitar players, was Elvis' guitar player a lot throughout the 70s. He later would go on to work with Graham Parsons. He would work with Emmylou Harris. I saw him with Emmylou Harris on her first tour as in part of the Hot Band with Emmylou Harris. And if you've heard with the Grievous Angel album, when Graham yells out, James Burton and his pink paisley guitar. Anyway, I didn't go back and research why this would be considered a depressing album. I think it's pretty upbeat, but it's rehearsals in a way, and just jamming and working on these great, great songs. But Bitter They Are, Harder They Fall, She Thinks I Still Care, The Last Farewell, Solitaire. Okay, I'll Never Fall in Love Again, Moody Blue, Danny Boy, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. Okay, I get it. Depresso Elvis. Elvis Depresso. Elvis Press. There's a joke there and I can't figure it out. But I love this record. And it was an interesting suggestion and I would never have thought of it for this video, for this topic. I've shown this record countless times. I did a feature on Phil Ochs, Pleasures for the Harbor. This record is beautiful. There's a rare mono version, which I finally scored in the last 2 years. This is a stereo version. I think it's gorgeous in stereo. It's eerie. It's gorgeous. Lincoln Mallorca plays piano throughout, which is a little classical. It's very lush, so it's not his kind of protest folk songs. Cross My Heart, Flower Lady, Outside a Small Circle of Friends, which was sort of an FM radio hit at the time. Miranda, The Party, Pleasures of the Harbor, a gorgeous long track. These tracks, I mean, most of them are over 7 minutes, 6, 7, 8 minutes. It ends with The Crucifixion. One of my all-time favorite records. And I know I say that a lot, but this is true about this one, Phil Ochs. Not for everyone. People, might not get the lushness of it, but it's a gorgeous artwork. And in 1967, very unusual for the time. Richard and Linda Thompson. This is a beautiful record. Is it a breakup record? Is it a vision of things to come? Because obviously they did break up, but singing together. The song that I bought that will Shoot Out the Lights is a great song. It's pretty much the title of the album, is the title of them, not pretty much. The title of the album, Shoot Out the Lights. But the one that I heard on the radio, on FM radio, to buy this album when it came out in 1982 was, did she jump or was she pushed? That's the question we've been asking for almost 40 years now, 38 years. Did she jump or was she pushed? And it ends with the great song that he still performs live, Wall of Death. Great record, great album. This is a must for anybody who's into UK folk rock. Great record. If you like Fairport Convention. Now, you could pick a lot of Johnny Cash's record, but I can't remember if this came out right before or right after he died in the American recordings. I think it was right after The Man Comes Around. And his version of Bridge Over Troubled Waters is a little unusual. Is this the duet, I believe, with Fiona Apple, which almost sounds like they're reaching for the keys, but it's haunting, it's gorgeous. First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, great song that Roberta Flack made famous back in the 70s. Personal Jesus, Danny Boy again. Danny Boy comes up a lot, and someone did comment on the first video of the Depression video about a lot of Irish music could be in this category. Totally get it. Also, a lot of people commented on a lot of blues. I purposely aren't showing blues because shit, you could pick every friggin' blues record and song could be sort of depression. I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, Streets of Laredo, ending with We'll Meet Again, which is kind of Johnny Cash saying goodbye, at least the way it ordered. Again, another great record produced by Rick Rubin, who resuscitated the great, wonderful Johnny Cash in the early 90s. Love it. This whole series is amazing. Even if you don't know what they're singing about all the time, Mark Kozelek and Red House Painters, the music just sounds depressing. Dirge, I didn't say it that much yet in this video. I said it like, I think someone counted 376 times I said dirge in the last video. I'm exaggerating, Mazzy's exaggerating. Gorgeous record, San Francisco band artist, also part of later Sun Moon Kill. Does a lot of solo albums, a lot of weird stuff that not all accessible. Also did some acting. He was in the, quote, fictional band and Almost Famous, the Cameron Crowe film. I think he played the bass player. One of his songs is on the soundtrack to Vanilla Sky, which I showed in one of my videos recently. But beautiful record, beautiful cover, dirge-like, Medicine Bottle, Japanese and English, Down Colorful Hill, Lord Kill and Pain, and Michael. So just 6 songs, gorgeous songs. I showed the box set of this. This came in the reissues of Red House Painters on an earlier video. Now, the long box, or no, the long, I'm sorry, Chris, my friend and I don't want to say co-friend, mutual friend with the archivist, who will be back soon on a video. The long chapter, the long set, the long track. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of your video because it's a song by Uncle Tupelo, right? Anyway, a few people mentioned Bob Dylan, and how can you not include Blood in the Tracks? Why am I including 2 copies of Blood in the Tracks? I mean, breakup album, breaking up with his wife, you know the songs on here. Tangle Up in Blue, Simple Twist of Fate, You're a Big Boy, You're a Big Girl Now, Idiot Wind, You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go. I don't need to read them all off, but I love this record. This record always makes me feel good. So melancholic, cathartic, I don't know. I just love this record. It's one of my favorite, especially my favorite 70s Dylan album. And beautifully recorded. And the reason I'm showing him, the box set came out in the last year of all the outtakes, the original recordings, and just briefly I'll say, he recorded the album, it was about to be released, then he went back and scrapped most of it and re-recorded some of the songs in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I can't remember if it was New York first or Minnesota first, I'm switching that up. But he went with a different band, different musicians, and totally different arrangements. Well, the record, when it first came out, looks like this. So a lot of you may have this record, a lot were put out, they didn't call it back, but this has liner notes on it, written by Peter Hamill in New York, 1974. The liner notes reflect the original recording, the original tape that was about to be cut. It was mastered, it was ready to go, and Dylan pulled back and recorded it. When it finally came out, they replaced it with this back cover. So original, and then this back cover. So this is the cover that stayed in print for years after. But this was kind of an interesting thing for you Dylan freaks, or even actually the newbies who don't know this story. That's basically the story, as close as I can get right now. I don't think this necessarily fits in this section, but it's a wonderful introspective record. And it was in 1967, a great single. It seemed to come out of nowhere. Society's Child by the great Janice Ian. And it's a very personal take on a young woman growing up, going through some things. Great sort of a young woman's anthem of the 60s, and a beautiful record. Go Away Little Girl, Hair of Spun, Then Tangles of My Mind, I Give You a Stone, I'll Throw It. Oh, I'll Give You a Stone If You Throw It, excuse me. Janie's Blues, Younger Generation Blues. The blues are here. This is the closest to the blues that I'm getting on this video, but Janice Ian on Verve Records, Verve Forecast Records, I believe 66 or 67. Beautiful, beautiful painting on the cover. Wow. Joseph Solomon, don't know him, did that painting of Janice. But I'm putting in here because there's a moody, it's not the normal kind of dirge thing, but it's really beautiful. The other person, the other big request, suggestion was Nebraska. You all know it, or most of you know it, Bruce Springsteen, I know how we pronounce his name, but yeah, it's about murder, mayhem, just, you know, introspective. I mean, this record came out of nowhere, and a lot of people, when it came out, and basically recorded on a cassette. An amazing record, you know, just up there, and an important record, especially coming from an artist like Bruce Springsteen. Nebraska. I picked Lou Reed last time, but I can pick a lot of Velvet Underground records. They just sound like dark and depressing, and Lower East Side of New York, Alphabet City, the hookers and the muggers and the junkies and the stuff, and you know that time in Manhattan, in New York City, down in the 70s and 80s and late 60s and everything. Candy Says, What Goes On, great song, Jesus, on here. Beginning to See the Light, that's the story of my life, the murder mystery After Hours. Velvet Underground, you could pick up several of their albums. In fact, their whole catalog is kind of down and dirgy and depressing in a way. And two more I'm going to end with. One is, again, this was heavily suggested as well. Pink Moon. This is the reissue that came out in 2012. It was a box, analog recorded. This is, I mean, if you can still find this, I think it's really hard to find now. Any version of it is fine, but this came in a box. Gatefold. I'll get into the whole thing. Thing about it, Pink Moon, Nick Drake, definitely has that moody, personal, introspective sound, just the way he sings and how personal he gets in his music. And most of you will know this story, but he died tragically, died way too young, was was not very outgoing. Joe Boyd, who kind of really signed him, discovered him more or less, and produced his records, really tried to pull things out of him, and sometimes it took a lot to get him to really open up and sing. And I mean, he just couldn't perform live. He was so shy. But we sold these records, again, in 73, 74, when I first started working in the record business. His records were out there. And I don't remember ever listening to or selling one of his records. They kind of sat there in the bins. You'd have them in, and I'm sure obviously he had a little cult following then, but I never listened to him really. I think I heard one or two songs. But then cut to, 15 years ago, 20 years ago now, Volkswagen uses Pink Moon on one of their commercials, and his career explodes. He's been dead. Joe Boyd and company kind of put together and re-released it, and he sold more records since that Volkswagen commercial than he did probably in any one of his albums ever sold originally. But Pink Moon is something, if you're into folk music, introspective, depressing, personal music, cathartic, this is an amazing, amazing record. It's been reissued, so it's easy to find on compact disc or vinyl. And lastly, I've done so many mentions of this, one of my all-time favorite artists, but I'm going to end with Warren Zevon, his final album, Depressing more or less, mainly because this is the album he was recording while he was dying of cancer. It hit #1, just as I recall, just before he passed away. Some of the recording he had to do lying on a couch. He's got guests like Bruce Springsteen, Jackson Browne, so many other people on this record. Dirty Life and Times, Disorder in the House, that's sung with Bruce Springsteen. He does a great version. Talk about morbid and depressing and down and out, but it's really cathartic. There's a great version of Knocking on Heaven's Door, the Dylan song. Talk about a song you sing when you know you're about to die. Rub Me the Wrong Way, Keep Me in Your Heart. That song, you play that song and think about Warren Zevon, and if you don't shed a tear, then I don't think I want to know you. Anyway, Warren Zevon, The Wind. So that's part 2 for me and my final of this one. A couple of people mentioned they want to jump on this, and I hope I didn't steal thunder showing more stuff here, but I'd love to see introspective, moody, depressing type of cathartic music that you like. I think it's not a contest, but if you want to do it, I'd love to see more of it. So Mazzy loves you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the other side.